All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another Zoids review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Kotobukiya HMM Shield Liger DCS-J, which is a kit that I've had in my backlog pretty much since its release in late 2019, and just now finally got around to building it. So we're finally out of sort of the older printing of kits and getting into kits that I purchased upon their actual release. So finally making some progress in the backlog, and I'm really excited about that. So this is one I was highly looking forward to, because this is probably the coolest variant of the Shield Liger, although I'm sure that's subjective. And the white and gold combination of the Mark II is pretty desirable, but we haven't had a printing of the HMM Shield Liger Mark II in quite some time. So this is one of the most accessible HMM Shield Ligers to get, because it had its initial Japanese printing in late 2019 and also had one of the printings for the American distribution late last year as well, which means that this was actually the first HMM to have the distribution for the West. So there are more copies of this in circulation than there would be HMMs that are older than this. So that does help with the accessibility of it a little bit. But before we get into that, this is the first video, the first Zoids video I'm recording with the new camera. So you may notice a wider field of view because this camera does have a larger lens on it. You are noticing it is going to be in 60 FPS, so things are going to be incredibly smooth, which hopefully will add to the style of the video. The audio is going to sound a little bit different because the microphone on this one is located on the top of the camera instead of on the front of it. So if I'm facing the camera, I'm not speaking directly into it, which may cause a bit of an odd sound, but I'm hoping to get an external microphone hookup for some better quality audio for live action recorded content on the camera like this. If I do something with post commentary, the microphone I have for the computer is perfectly serviceable, but there's a bit of a disparity in quality between the built-in audio on a camcorder compared to external audio you could hook up to that. But I'm not an expert as far as that goes, but I'm looking to improve the quality of these productions ever so slightly as time goes on. Let's go ahead and talk about the DCS-J in terms of lore. So the Shield Liger you guys should be very familiar with, of course, because it is one of the signature Zoids of the franchise, and you should be familiar with its appearances in the Battle Story and also in the Chaotic Century anime, where it was the Zoid of the protagonist Van Flyheight for the first series of Chaotic Century. But what you're probably less familiar with is the DCS-J in specific. So the Shield Liger was developed as a countermeasure to the Saber Tiger, because the Halic Republic was having their asses beat by the Saber Tigers, and so they managed to capture one and reverse engineer it into the Shield Liger initially. The Shield Liger had incredible speed and maneuverability and incredible defensive capabilities with its built-in shield, but lacked a lot of powerful long-range offensive power. So the Shield Liger Mark II was developed with the long-range twin-barrel beam cannons you see here, and was a sort of compromise of speed and mobility with greater firepower, a compromise that the Halic Republic was very glad to make, considering that it offset any of the noticeable drawbacks of the Shield Liger. The DCS-J is a version of the Mark II that has enhanced maneuverability and speed to offset the trade-off that they created with the Mark II. So you would get a Shield Liger that was best of both worlds and outperformed the base model Shield Ligers in terms of speed and maneuverability, but had increased firepower on level of the Mark II. The DCS-J was definitely a specialized unit for very experienced pilots, and in the battle story was used by notably by Ray Gregg, who is a notable character from the battle story. And the box art here depicts a particular event that happened in the battle story where Ray Gregg takes some Halic Republic forces to infiltrate a empire. I think it was Gylos at that point. I think it was Gylos Empire. Infiltrate a facility where you can actually see in the background there the Liger Zero and the Berserk Fury were being developed. Now, the Liger Zero prototype was actually stolen successfully by the Republic, where they were able to reverse engineer that prototype into the Liger Zero we all know and love. The Berserk Fury, on the other hand, managed to destroy Ray Gregg's Shield Liger DCS-J, and Ray Gregg retired from using the Shield Liger platform after that point and adopted the Blade Liger fully after that point. So that was a noteworthy mission that the DCS-J was, I guess you could say, successful with, even though it did get destroyed afterward. In the video game appearances, the Zoids Saga series, especially in Zoids Legacy, the regular Shield Liger, when it's equipped with the beam cannons, is often referred to as the Shield Liger DCS. And then the DCS-J appears in that game as well. In the Battle Legends trilogy, if you have a save file from Zoids Versus 1 on your GameCube memory card and you load up Zoids Versus 2 or Battle Legends, you will automatically have the ability to purchase the DCS-J in the tournament mode because you have that existing save file on there. And the same thing for Versus 2 or Battle Legends into Versus 3. You'll have the ability to purchase the DCS-J that way. I don't know if it's actually affordable, and what I need to do is actually check and see if the American version of Battle Legends will check for the Japanese save file from Zoids Versus 1 when checking for that unlock condition. I need to see if that actually works. I'll probably check that pretty soon because I haven't actually gotten my Japanese GameCube out of its box since I moved into this house, so I probably need to play some Versus 1 and Versus 3 pretty soon here, and in doing so I'll test and see if the same GameCube memory card with a save file of Versus 1 and a English save file of Battle Legends will still check for that unlock condition. In gameplay in the Zoids Versus trilogy, the Shield Liger Mark II, or just any Shield Liger equipped with these cannons, is extremely powerful, and much like lore would suggest, you are making a compromise on mobility there, but I talked about that in the Battle Legends tier list, where I feel like the amount of damage output you can put out with the Mark II cannons, and you consider the mobility compromise that you get in response, it is actually a perfectly worthwhile compromise. And so I think it's well worth it in the long run, and you end up getting one of the best Zoids in the game by doing that, in my opinion. So I put the Shield Liger with the Mark II cannons in S tier in that tier list specifically for that. That's a brief overview of the DCS-J from a lore standpoint. In terms of the model kit itself, originally in the NJR era, we did get a Shield Liger DCS-J motorized version. My friend Brad has that, so I'll eventually be able to do a video on that version and sort of side-by-side comparison with the other motorized Shield Ligers. We did not get the DCS-J in the West on the Hasbro line, but we did get the, of course, blue motorized Shield Liger, and there's no noticeable differences between the two except for the color of the molded pieces and the fact that it does include the cannons. This was the first printing of the DCS-J as an HMM in 2019, but there have been many iterations of the HMM Shield Liger prior to this, including the very first HMM all the way back in 2006 was a Shield Liger, and then it was retooled as the van version, and then it was retooled as the, I don't remember the name of the character that it's associated with, but essentially the Desert Shield Liger was another HMM variant that we got for that. And then finally the DCS-J, but the original blue vanilla Shield Liger is getting a reprint as an HMM this year. So that actually should be available for pre-order on all the major websites. If you guys wanted to get an HMM Shield Liger, that's a very good way to do it. And it's really cool to have a generic Shield Liger finally in circulation again that isn't just the DCS-J if you're looking for a more inexpensive one or one that would be a good modding template if you're looking to do modifications on this, although I have seen some pretty sick modifications to this guy as well. But onto this exact model kit itself, this one doesn't really need a whole lot in terms of modification because straight out of the box, this thing is pretty sick. So in terms of the construction, I was quite surprised as to how similar this was in the internal skeleton to the Blade Liger, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that considering in lore, you know, the Blade Liger either evolved from the Shield Liger depending on your lore or was built off of it, inspired by it. But literally on the HMM level, the core body the inside of the torso is exactly the same as the blade Liger. And, you know, if I had built HMMs when they were first coming out, I would know that. Or if I had built a Shield Liger first, I would know that. But my very first HMM was the Van Blade Liger. And since then, I've built the Leon Blade Liger, and I have the 2020 Blade Liger Markings Plus in my backlog that I'm going to build as well. So I'm very familiar with the HMM Blade Liger. And yeah, the main torso of this is exactly the same. There's even some pieces that overlap between the two kits, so you get to kind of customize a little bit, which is something that also the motorized versions do. You can't one-to-one change the core body of the motorized Shield Liger and Blade Liger. They do have some fundamental differences, but there are some aesthetic pieces that do overlap. But to kind of get into some specifics here, I really loved the way the head was constructed on this, and I feel like the head construction on the Shield Liger HMM is actually better than that of the HMM Blade Liger. The coloration of the fangs and the feet, and even some of the interior leg components here being a pretty shiny metallic silver, looks really good on this. It looks way better than the ugly yellow that's on the Van Blade Liger. And I just love the reimagining of the head shape to where it's much more narrow and less bulky. One of my biggest complaints about the way that the Shield Liger looks when you compare it to more modern Zoids is just how big the head is. And that was sort of a downside to the early motorized kits, where they have to build the head as sort of this clamshell that all connects around a center piece that moves, that connects to the motor. And so without a motor, you have the ability to have a much more simple, streamlined, smoothed out design, which is sort of the signature way that they go about implementing the design changes for the HMMs. They do tend to kind of streamline the design and smooth it out a little bit. And I really like the look of that on the HMM. And of course, we have the cockpit with the pilot in there. It is a generic pilot. There is no Ray Gregg pilot with this, unfortunately. I'm going to go ahead and move down the cannons to kind of show you what that looks like. Luckily, the joints on this are pretty stiff, and I think one of the joints in here was given there's like a little, I guess the equivalent of like a hydraulic pin almost, that adds some tension to this motion. Again, very similar to the Blade Liger blades, but if you build it right and all the pieces are nice and tight, you won't really have to worry about the weight of the cannons causing anything to fall down or fall apart, because if you've built it correctly, then everything should be nice and tight, and there should be enough resistance here to where, in spite of how heavy the cannons are, you're not going to be creating a lot of resistance and that kind of thing. One thing that's cool as well is that the cannons have up and down motion. There's a lot of articulation in the cannons there. That's the cannons lowered down. It looks absolutely badass. And the cannon back here, they went with a very small, sort of dinky little design on this cannon. I don't like how the connecting piece right there is all rubber. So if you twist this the wrong way, you can probably bend that, which is not great. But one thing that's really cool about this, let's see if I can rotate it a full 360 degrees. You can close the back cover down and keep this cannon up firing forward. And so it doesn't disrupt the overall look of it, and it does give it a greater design sensibility than the original motorized one did, where the motorized one, the little cannon up here, was really obstructed by the cover itself. So this is a nice look. I'm glad they went for that, even though this cannon is even more wimpy looking than on the original motorized version, which is kind of a shame, and rotating it is a little bit difficult, like I said, because of the rubber piece inside there. But I love how it just stores away completely flat and does not obstruct the overall look of the body, and is just very subtle and nicely hidden away. I think that's a really nice touch. The standard Shield Liger missile pods are very small because they're meant to fit in a space about as big as where my finger is right here. And so if you were to take the cannons off and attach the vanilla missile pods, which do come with this kit, they take up a very small amount of space as well, much like the original Shield Liger. But the original motorized Shield Liger, which I'll be able to demonstrate here, what you would do on the original motorized version if you were to attach these cannons is, and I've actually done this with the Hasbro Shield Liger, I have attached the Mark II cannons from the CP #1, the actual customized parts kit. And what you do is you take the missile pods off and you put them back here on this sort of rear assembly. But on the HMM, they actually have created unique missile pods to put back here that are not the same missile pods that would go in the center there. So you have these nice, bigger, more bulky missile pods that attach to the back there. And then also, if you look at the tail gun, this angle is not particularly flattering, but it does illustrate my point, which is that the tail gun on the DCS-J is massive and much more detailed than the dinky little Saber Tiger gun from the wind-up version or the motorized version. So continuing the HMM trend of just making the weapons much bigger and more intimidating, and just really kind of manipulating the scale of the Zoids to make them just look better. And I think it's a huge improvement. I still love the original Shield Liger, don't get me wrong, and in spite of my borderline nitpicking about the head shape and style, the original Shield Liger is always going to be iconic. So this is a nice little comparison that we have here. One thing that's worth pointing out as well about the hoses is that the hoses right here for the CP1 on the motorized Shield Liger this is like a metal spring almost, which is good because if it's not rubber, it can't deteriorate like rubber pieces tend to do on old toys. So those of you that have like the Energy Liger, for instance, you may notice some deterioration on the rubber hoses over time. But unfortunately, with the HMM DCS-J here, they have repurposed the sort of ammo belt piece from the HMM Great Saber. Now, aesthetically, it looks really, really cool, but it's also a little bit disingenuous because I think from a lore standpoint, there's supposed to be beam weapons, so they wouldn't really have belt-fed cartridges necessarily, so that kind of makes it a little bit silly. Again, it makes it a really cool look, and I love the way that, you know, if you were to figure out how to actually load this weapon, this piece right up here where my finger is a cap that comes off, and then the belt of ammo just sort of clips in there. So the way it attaches is also really cool and reminds me of how you would attach an actual belt of ammunition to a real machine gun in real life or something like that. But it's definitely a noticeable aesthetic difference and is going to be... It could be a problem in the long-term longevity of this kit. If this is made of rubber, this may deteriorate over time and eventually disintegrate. Whereas the old, you know, more than 20-year-old, actually, yeah, probably exactly 20-year-old metal spring pieces right here are going to more or less last forever. Let's do one final comparison. I don't know if I'll be able to fit all of these on the base here, but here is the other Shield Liger that I have. The Shield Liger Commander SP. So there is no HMM version of this one. Unfortunately, one of the cannons is a little bit loose and likes to flop down, probably from it being weighed down so much over time. But this is a nice little comparison because you get to see the pieces that were added specifically for the DCS-J and the Mark II, and then the pieces that were added specifically for the Commander SP. The Commander SP has a remolded canopy top up here for the shield. It has an extra cannon down here that's not on the previous iterations. This cannon right here is all new. And then the back piece right here that the cannons plug into, I've got to bring it all the way around to show you that. This is also completely brand new right here, although the original piece is included in the Commander SP kit. I've already done a review on both of these. If you guys want to check them out on the channel, of course, the Shield Liger review is very old. But the Commander SP is a fantastic kit, one of my favorite motorized kits. Very, very fond of this kit. Looks awesome. Very glad that I purchased it. If you guys are looking to pick one up, you can still order it online on a lot of sites. If you're looking to get the US distribution of one of the kits, that's probably the way to go at this point. And there should be pretty plentiful and pretty affordable. Although keep in mind, if you're buying from a US-based store, you're probably buying it at an extreme markup because you're buying the US retail markup and the cost to offset the import markup as well. So usually a lot of stores will try to do that. Like my local hobby store has had this recently, but it was much more expensive than it would have been if you just ordered it off of AmiAmi back in the day. So, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.